Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV and welcome to 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you've all had a wonderful New Year and I hope you're enjoying your New Year's Day. This is the first video on Hapanwo TV of 2023 and therefore, as per tradition, I've made it a UFO disclosure video. And now, this is going to be an interesting one because the title of this particular UFO disclosure video is that it? So is that it? I think I've called it. Yeah. So is that it? I'm decided on the exact words. Sometimes I think, is that it then, or so is that it then, or I'll probably go with so is that it ? And the reason is because many people are saying, well, that is it. They are. I mean, it's a sad situation, and I want to take you back to the last New Year where I did a UFO disclosure video. Now it was actually a couple of weeks after New Year for reasons I can't quite remember. I wouldn't do it on New Year's Day itself. Was it which year did I did that wonderful video I really love, the one where Boris Johnson comes on the TV and does the disclosure speech, and I love that one. It cuts from Coronation Street and is an emergency broadcast. Oh, that was so good. I think it might have been the year before. Anyway, do watch it if you haven't. It's one of my favourite videos ever. But the title of my last year's UFO disclosure video was it was Year of the Nudge. I called it Year of the Nudge. Let me just get the details up for you here. Where was it? Yeah, I'm not in my studio area, as you can see. I'm just in my study area, and the reason I'm in my study area is because I've got a lot I need to be able to really access my. I need to be able to access. Here we are. Where is it? Yeah, here we are. 2022 UFO Disclosure 2022 Year of the Nudge. It came out on the 16th of January. I need to be able to access all my notes and things. So there it is. That's the video I brought out on the 16th of January. And I said here, this year will probably be one of hints rather than explicit exposure. A few of these psychological nudges happened as the last year closed. Yeah, that's what I actually predicted for 2022. That's what I actually predicted would happen in the UFO disclosure field in 2022. I thought there would be no major breakthroughs at all, really. I thought that things would kind of tick along through the last 12 months. That's what I could see coming, without any major developments. And then hopefully 2023, the year coming, would be one of hopefully revolutionary developments. And I wasn't the only one thinking that. Several other people had similar ideas. They were certainly looking for 2023 as the year when everything would happen. How wrong I was! How incredibly wrong I was! It wasn't, I actually said this soon after. It wasn't long after I made that video that suddenly things started coming about, which proved that there wasn't going to be just nudges. I mean, there was a lot of major breakthroughs. There was the announcement there was going to be a congressional hearing. There was 1,500 UAPTF pages released. All these kinds of things were happening. It was very heady. The first half of this year was a very, very heady, very hopeful period of time, and I just thought, I'm totally wrong about the nudge thing, aren't I? And I was. The problem is, something very strange happened, because people are like talking about, full disclosure before the end of the year. Seriously, and I interviewed Stephen Bassett, and of course whenever you interview him, he always says disclosure's a few months away, doesn't he? But just for a change, I actually believed him. And then what happens? It's almost like an incredibly anticlimactic situation, because just as this was all developing, some moment came along, and suddenly, right at the, just when the party was really getting going, the shutters come down at the bar. It's how it happened. I'm still looking into how this actually came about. This whole situation came about. I made a few notes here. It's difficult to time it exactly. I don't know if it's possible. I think possibly there was a lot of. I think the summer was a quite confusing time, if I remember, because there was the congressional hearing. Actually, it did cause there was a lot of interesting things in it which gave people hope, but at the same time there was a huge amount of confusion sowed by it. If you remember, I covered this at the time. I don't need to repeat what I said at the time, but I did make a couple of videos. I wrote some articles about this. I've published a huge amount of material about what happened, documenting what happened during the course of the summer. And then in September, I think we first came. I mean, this article. There's an article that came out. Now this version here, if it'll open, is in the Boston Globe. Now originally it came out in the Washington Post, I believe. But this is from October the 28th. I think it actually came out a bit. It came out actually a bit before that in the Washington Post. But it was this article here by Julian E. Barnes. Was when I can't remember when it was actually released. I think it was either late September, early October, but I knew it was just before the new UAPTF report was going to be released. I'll come on to the UAPTF report because I mean I think when the issue over the delayed UAPTF report has really caused. I mean, I wasn't sure if I was just imagining things until that happened, and then I started seriously to worry. This is Julian E. Barnes of the Washington Post. And it's updated October the 28th. I know it was published sometime a little bit before that time. Many military UFO reports are just foreign spying or airborne trash. Officials. You don't need to see this, do you? You just get it here. Here's the URL. It's the Boston Globe. The original Washington Post article is behind a paywall. But basically, if you don't sub to the Washington Post, this is a copy of it. But when this burst out, everyone was astonished because the tone. I'll read the report out to you. Washington. Government officials believe that surveillance operations by foreign powers and weather balloons or other airborne clutter explain most recent incidents of unidentified aerial phenomenon. Government speak for UFOs, as well as many episodes in past years. The sightings have puzzled the Pentagon and intelligence agencies for years. Try decades, mate, years. See, this is what I'm a bit worried about. They do this. They're trying to. I think. Who was it? I think it might have been. It might have been. Who was it who said they were trying to rebrand it? I think it might have been John Greenwald. I'll come back to John Greenwald in a little while. He said they were trying to rebrand the whole UFO phenomenon, trying to make out they didn't really exist before 2017, things like that. Didn't exist before the 2017 videos were released. It's more than years. This goes back to at least World War II. Fueling theories about visiting space aliens and spying by a hostile nation using advanced technology. Well, the funny thing is, like the hostile nation using advanced technology, although it is technically possible, there are many reasons to discount this, and indeed the government officials were coming out saying quite clearly, many of them were saying, including Lou Elizondo, usually China or Russia get blamed for this. Well, Russia gets blamed for everything, doesn't it, these days? But saying that it's some kind of drone, something like that, but it didn't fit. I mean, basically they were saying it's we don't know what it is. It's not aliens, but it might be aliens. It was at least contradictory statements were coming out. They were desperate not to use the A word. Yet they were sort of like saying, "Well, it's not this. It's not this. It's not that. What else is it? We don't know." It's not. It was like one of these annoying people, who go, we're going to go out tonight. Yeah, where should we go? I don't mind. Let's just go anywhere. All right, let's just have a pint down the King's Arms. No, I hate that pub. All right, should we go to the White Hart? No, I hate that pub. Not going there. Well, do you want to go to? Do you want to go to the cinema or something? No, I'm not in the mood to watch a film. Where do you want to go then? Oh, anywhere, I don't mind. It's one of these annoying contradictory things they kept saying. That was how the government were treating the UAP phenomenon. Anyway, so, and they were at the same time, like I said, they're trying to rebrand. I think it was who was it? I'm trying to work out. I can't remember who actually said that there was a rebranding attempt. Anyway, I'll carry on with this article. But government officials say that many of the incidents have far more ordinary explanations. So, in other words, this is just. I'm not going to read this whole article actually because it's going to be very boring. But basically what Barnes is saying here, according to the government officials he's spoken to, what he's basically saying is exactly the same thing that was in the Condon Report in 1969. Have we not moved any further on from all that time? Here we go. Intelligence agencies are set to deliver a classified document to Congress by Monday, that's the 31st of October, updating a report made public last year. Yeah, that was the UAPTF report I covered in June 2021. That said nearly all the incidents remain unexplained. Now, the UAPTF report, this new report, the second one, was this was in the, I forgot the name of the bill, the one that Trump signed into law just before he quit, in December last year. What was it, the something Defence Acquisition Act or something, I can't remember what it was called. I covered it at the time. I don't have every bit of note in front of me like some guys do. And this was that they had to produce this. The original plan actually was that the UAPTF had to republish a report every 6 months. But so they were going to do one by October 31st, which is actually slightly more than 6 months, but never mind. Just so we were going to have this dropped on Halloween. Could you as Kevin Logan would say, the memes, the motherfucking memes. Anyway, the original document looked at 144 incidents between 2004 and 2021 that were reported by the US government sources, mostly American military personnel. This article is based on interviews, blah blah blah, with the officials, etc. Some of the incidents have been formally attributed to Chinese surveillance with relatively ordinary drone technology. Oh, right, really? Does this include the Tic Tac thing that can accelerate at 25,000 miles an hour? Does China have a drone that could do that? In which case, Matthew Williams is going to head for China now to pick one up because he'll be desperate to get one, won't he? And here we go. Much of the information about unidentified phenomena remains classified, while Congress has been briefed on some of the conclusions about foreign surveillance. Pentagon officials have kept most of the work secret, in large measure because they don't want China or other countries to know that their efforts to spy on the US military were detected. Oh, they don't want the Chinese to know that they've spotted them. They've been rumbled spying using their completely ordinary drones near US Navy carrier battle groups. So we're not going to tell them we're going to put an article in the Boston Globe and the Washington Post saying that we know that. We're going to tell a journalist exactly what it is and tell him to publish it. It's that joke from Blackadder, isn't it? Only you, me, and the rest of the English-speaking world will know. But such official secret again. Right, he does say that most of this stuff remains classified. All right, so most of it remains classified, but there's a little bit you can talk about, which is what they don't want China to know, which they're putting in the papers. You know, this contradiction. I think this guy Barnes is taking a piss. He really is. But such official secrecy comes at a cost, allowing conspiracy theories about government lives to thrive unchecked. Oh dear. I think we need some fact checkers. We need to find some way to counter misinformation, don't we? We need to trust the science, don't we? Etc, etc, etc. Oh, Sue Goff. Oh, go Sue Goff. Here we go. That name comes up again. Sue Goff, a Defense Department spokesperson. Person? Are you how do you know she's a person? She might be non-binary. Don't intergender her. Anyway, a spokesperson said the Pentagon remains committed to principles of openness, but must balance that with its obligation to protect sensitive information sources and methods. Well, yeah, I understand that they've actually stated, I'm going to come on to the videos as well because they make a big statement about the videos. Some of the evidence, including the videos and telemetry, has not been released. They say, not because of its context, that is because it contains UFOs, but because it would give away secret information about the capabilities of the ships and aircraft involved. While the Pentagon will not rush to conclusions in its analysis, Goff said, "No single explanation addresses the majority of unidentified aerial phenomenon reports. We are collecting as much data as we can, following the data where it leads, and will share our findings whenever possible." I haven't read this article before, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it does actually get quite boring, and doesn't really say an awful lot that's terribly interesting. Oh, here we go. This is an interesting paragraph here. UFO skeptics and experts in optics have long said that many of the videos and sightings by naval aviators represent optical illusions that have made ordinary objects, weather balloons, I'm not kidding you, weather balloons, commercial drones, and it doesn't say swamp gas. I'm going to say swamp gas. They can't be that unoriginal, surely. Appeared to move faster than possible. What's happened there? Did my computer just do something weird? No, it's still running. That's good. Well, of course, I think they mean by UFO skeptics and experts. Don't tell me they mean Mick West. Are they seriously saying it's Mick West? Military officials have largely come to the same conclusion. Besides images of green triangles. Oh, right, the green triangle things was what Mick West was saying. Yeah, he says that the shape simply comes from it's the shape of the aperture, basically, of the camera, causing out of focus objects to take on that shape. The bokeh, as he calls it. Military officials have repeatedly said there is no evidence that any of the images show space alien visitors. Comments often played down in the news media or ignored by lawmakers. In May, Pentagon officials testified under oath that the government had not collected materials from any alien landing on Earth, but the testimony did little to dampen enthusiasm for theories about extraterrestrial visitors. Oh, right, I see. Okay. Wonder what the comments say. As always, when these stupid articles come on, right, go to the comments. The comments are a lot more interesting than the articles. This is good. Of course the Pentagon is going to explain it away. They can't say there are aliens watching us. People would freak out. Well, I think few people would. I reckon most people actually wouldn't. I think my own views changed on that quite considerably, actually. I would... if I was writing Roswell Rising today, I would actually write it slightly differently. In that I think when disclosure happens, I think a few people will freak out. A few people like myself will be overjoyed. And the majority of people will be pretty indifferent, actually. Pretty indifferent. Here we go. Who's this? See if there's any people I mean. CB of Maine actually said that. Then there's someone else with just a number. The scientific analysis of UAP phenomena is a tautology. P stands for phenomena. Is the basis of getting to a truthful explanation of most phenomena. The examples explained here seem to point to much more rational, newly found explanations. Oh, I'm not going to repeat myself and be pedantic about rational explanations. The wild conspiracy theories that too much of the so-called UFO community, in quotes, pronounce, create confusion and lack of credibility. Time to go back to the strong principles of the scientific study of UFOs. Well, funnily enough, I kind of agree with that. I think the wild conspiracy theories obviously is a bit of it's a dysphemism, it's an insult, but maybe we do, there is a lot of confusion and lack of credibility in the UFO community, mostly caused by people who people I've talked about before. The idea of going back to field research is actually not a bad idea. And this is Fed Up Fred said, newly found explanations? The good old weather balloon excuse is still being used. Hey, it worked for Roswell. Absolutely, mate, absolutely, yeah. Any more interesting here? I've seen many UFOs. I was raking my leaves yesterday and something flew by. It might have been a crow, but I couldn't identify it. Yeah, that's a bit sarcastic there. Oh, this is RB Hub, who says here, read Harvard Professor Avi Loeb's book, Extraterrestrial, Intelligent Life Exists Out There. Yes! I've read that book. I reviewed it for UFO Truth magazine. I think I've mentioned it on this program, yeah. This is MCFC. Intelligent life does exist out there. Professor Loeb just isn't an example of it. Oh, you twat, you twat. Go on then. You go and you go to Harvard and you explain. You go and tell him why this guy's wrong. This guy who studied astronomy and has a huge reputation of being a. I think I've got the title of his position, but he's a very senior head of astronomy, basically at Harvard. It has a special title. He has all that reputation to risk. He studied all his life on this sort of thing, and I bet this bloody idiot here has never even looked at a single thing. It wouldn't bother me, right? There's nothing wrong with knowing less about a subject than Loeb does, and going and debating with him, and he just proves you wrong. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with somebody and you know less about it, because you might be right. But it's when you just insult somebody like that, idiot. Oh, and here's someone else is calling Professor Avi Loeb a name. This is someone else here who's calling Avi Loeb an attention-craving and well-credentialed media toy. Really, really, is that the best you can do? Oh, this is funny. This is Villas, who says most UFOs are weather balloons filled with swamp gas. Even the ones that suddenly make right turns at thousands of miles per hour. Nothing to see here, just believe what you were told. Excellent comment. Excellent comment. And there's someone else who says the same thing. There's several comments along these lines. I'm not going to read them all out. You can read them at the article yourself. So yeah, basically this article unfortunately has become very, very influential. And it's it appears to have been written specifically to almost like a sort of case closed kind of thing. Let me just I said a bit more about it. I'm just going to go into my notes, guys, so no offense, I'm just going to my notes here. It's sort of like, it's a case. This is kind of like, well, all this fuss that's been going on now for 5 whole years almost, and it is over 5 years now since the 2017 New York Times article. It was a bit of fun, but we've just suddenly worked it all out, and here is the answer. Okay, that's it. Move on. Nothing more to be said. And indeed, this article. I mean, I've read the whole thing, and to be honest, it has all the conviction and all the credibility of a news bite by Doug and Dave about weather balloons. But unfortunately, propaganda is often like that. As I said when I was talking about Richard D. Hall in the live stream about that, propaganda is very often very monolithic. It's very simplistic, and it does look to me like its intention is to roll back this entire UAP announcement cascade that I've been talking about. It's just get it down the memory hole, and unfortunately, since that article was published, the media has just turned its back. The rest of the media has turned its back on the whole thing. Ross Coulthard has said several things. He says it might be because with the post-COVID thing and the Ukraine war still raging, he thinks that the government and the media, government and their dealings with the media, they decided not to bother the world with it right now. Which now Stephen Bassett has sometimes said these sorts of things as well. We can't do disclosure now because of COVID. We can't do disclosure now because of this other thing going on. I remember he's often said this. Now there's the war broken out with Ukraine, and really it's not the right time to do it. Unfortunately, I said this to him. Are you going to just sit around waiting for completely calm waters to launch your ship? Because if you do, you could be waiting forever. The disclosure ship has to. At some point, you've got to just get the disclosure ship and put it out to sea. Because you know how I've explained before how we keep lurching from one crisis to another crisis to another crisis. Anyway, let's get on. Let's get away from that silly article now and go on to another article. I haven't actually read this one all the way through. Oops, my browser is hourglassing. I've not actually read this particular article all the way through. I've cut and pasted it anyway, but it's by NASA. And where is it? Here we go. Oops. Hang on. Oh, okay. Basically, I cut and pasted the text, so if this doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. But this was published actually in not October the 21st, so round about the same time as that Julian Barnes article that has been so influential. I'll just show it to you. It's on the NASA website. NASA announces unidentified anomalous phenomena study team members. Right. NASA selected 16 individuals to participate in its independent study on unidentified anomalous phenomena, observations of events in the sky that cannot be identified as aircraft or as known natural phenomena are categorized as UAPs. Well, not according to Julian Barnes, they're not. According to him, they're categorized as Chinese drones. Even though none of these Chinese drones have ever been captured, none of them ever failed. None of them, obviously, like if they're over the sea and they fail, they're going to fall into the sea and sink. They may well be designed to sink quickly, so they can't be, if they float for too long, someone could send a boat out and pick one up. But they're probably designed to sink, so they can't be captured. Anyway, the independent study will begin on Monday, October the 24th. Over the course of 9 months, the independent study team will lay the groundwork for future study on the nature of UAPs for NASA and other organisations. To do this, the team will identify how data gathered by civilian government entities, which is that's a bit of a contradiction in terms, commercial data and data from other sources can potentially be analysed to shed light on UAPs. It will then recommend a roadmap for potential UAP data analysis by the agency going forward. That's a rather long-winded series of sentences, which actually kind of say the same thing over and over again. Oh, there we are. The study will focus solely on unclassified data. Unclassified data. A full report containing the team's findings will be released to the public in mid-2023. All right. Well, so this is just saying that this is just announcing they're starting this thing. They're starting this study. They're starting a study here. Exploring. Here we go. Who's this speaking here? This is Thomas Zurbuchen, the Associate Administrator of Science Mission Directorate at NASA. Exploring in the unknown in space and I don't know if that's a NASA voice. Exploring the unknown in space and the atmosphere is at the heart of who we are at NASA. They say they're only dealing with unclassified data, but that's probably not true. They probably, like the other government agencies involved in this, such as the Department of Defense, they're probably going to have a classified annex which they will not whose results they will not publish. We know from, so many astronauts have talked about it. Story Musgrave, William Cooper, and there's these incidents caught on camera accidentally up on the ISS and the STS. Understanding the data we have surrounding unidentified anomalous phenomena is critical to helping us draw scientific conclusions about what's happening in the sky. It's nice he said scientific conclusions rather than rational explanations, so well done for using the right language here. Data is the language of scientists and makes the inexplicable explicable. Unidentified anomalous phenomena are of interest to both national security and air safety, and the study aligns with one of NASA's goals to ensure the safety of aircraft. Well, a big plane that crashes into a weather balloon is not going to be harmed very much, is it? There you go. I'm not going to read all of this. It's quite long. Let's have a look. NASA has brought together some world-leading blah-de-blah scientists and data, and it gives you a list of the people here who are involved. David Spergel. That's a good name. I don't know if that means he is Spurgy. I don't know. Anna Maria Barea, Federico Bianco. I'm only going to stop if I recognise any of these names. Federico Bianco, another bloody Scotsman. Paola Bontempi. Right. Reggie Brothers. That's a good name. Reggie Brothers. It sounds like an East End Gangsters, that, doesn't it? Reggie Brothers, yeah. Reggie Brothers, mate. Your name's not on the list, you're not coming in. Yeah. Jen Bus, B-U-S-S, Nadia Drake, pardon me. Mike, who's a freelance science journalist and writer at National Geographic. Jeff Boos is the CEO of the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies. That's interesting. Jen Buss. Mike Gold, Executive President of Civil Space and External Affairs. David Grinspoon, Senior Scientist at the Planetary Science Institute. Scott Kelly, a former NASA astronaut. Now, see, if I don't recognise any of these names, I'll carry on and I'll make my point then. Matt Mountain, that's his name. Warren Randolph, Executive Director of the FAA Accident Investigation. Now, funny enough, his predecessor, John Callahan, spoke at the 2001 Disclosure Project press conference, didn't he? Because he was the Federal Aviation Administration's Accident Investigation and Prevention for Aviation Safety. I remember he spoke at Greer's event in May 2001. Walter Scott, Executive Vice President of Maxar in Westminster, Colorado, a space technology company. Joshua Samita, Professor of Electrical Computing Engineering. Karen Toner, who's the acting executive director of the photocopier company. No, just because her name's Toner doesn't mean that. She's actually the FAA's Office of Aviation Policy and Plans. Right, so she's, again, close to the AA. And Shelley Wright, Associate Professor of Physics at the University of California. Okay, that's the end of that list. Now, the thing is, like, I didn't recognise any of those names, which means they're not really interested in approaching anyone who actually is part of the UFO studying community. That is the people who actually do what I do. I'll say not really what I do. I don't think I'd be worth. It wouldn't be. I wouldn't be the right person to do that sort of thing. However, what about David Hodrian? What about Gary Jones? These people are field researchers into UFOs. Why not some of the more people we know at MUFON and people like that? There's no one here. You see, I'm just going to go through this again. Yeah, there's no one. I'd like to see a name saying so and so, A, B, and C, executive director of MUFON, or chairman of the British UFO Association, or something like that. Someone who is a civilian ufologist and has made a career out of specialising in this business. They're essentially saying they're turning their back on the community that has gathered, that has basically had, worked hard, have burned rubber and scuffed leather, gaining the very data they're looking for. This community that Lou Elizondo gave up a very lucrative career at the Department of Defense to join. The community which the serious witnesses, the serious witnesses, people like Alan Godfrey, people like David Fravor, this is the community that these people turn to when they want to talk about these things. So why NASA is just saying, no, we're not really interested in those people. We don't really want to know anything about those people. We don't need them. We'd rather have Matt Mountain and Walter Spurg, or whatever his name is. So David Spergel and Anna Maria Barea and these other people. So, now I'm going to just have a look if it's still there. I haven't watched this yet. As I said, there's so much information out there, I can't cover it all. Let me just see if it's still there in my history. But I did start watching it. Could you see that?
They say can potentially be.
There we go.
Greetings and welcome to the Richard Dolan Show, where every week we fight the good fight.
Why NASA's UFO study will disappoint. Right. I haven't watched this yet. It's an hour long. It was posted 2 months ago, which is about when in October when this was all sort of like arranged. And I wonder if he's going to make the same points that I am. Why didn't they contact Richard Dolan? Why is he not on that committee? This guy was educated at Oxford, right here in Oxford. I never met him. I was too young, but he was studying hard when he wasn't getting pissed up at the trout and swimming in the river. So why not ask Richard here to be on their committee? all right. I admit he's not the most approachable guy in the world. In fact, I've been very angry with him at times when I've met him. But he knows his stuff. He knows his business. What about Gary Heseltine, former police detective, editor of a magazine which comes out every 2 months, and it's packed with information, serious research. I mean, I write for that magazine, and I think I put a lot of effort into getting being as rational as possible in his articles. So basically, that's the point I wanted to make here. So I haven't watched this yet, but I do wonder if I honestly do wonder if Richard is going to make the same point I did. Maybe you've already watched that video and you could say the same. Now, the UFO, the UAP report did not turn up. It was met with a stunned silence, and when it was met with we were just sitting there waiting for it to drop, just like we did in June 2021 for the original UAPTF report. And they said, well, there's going to be another one. There's going to be another one now, and this new this organisation, it's called Arrow now, I believe. See, I don't even know what to call this organisation. It was originally ORSAP, AAWSAP. It's a formal name when it first appeared. ATIP was kind of like, then it was, they say, no, it's not called ORTAP, it's called ORSAP, it's called ATIP. Then they changed it to the UAPTF. Then they called it AIMSOG, AOIMSG. It was called AIMSOG during that hearing, that congressional hearing, which they had to keep repeating, which made it sound a bit silly. But then now it's called Arrow, AARO. Now I can't remember what these acronyms stand for. I did look it up, but I'm not going to look it up again. But no doubt it's soon to be renamed again. It will be renamed again. But anyway, as I said, there was going to be a report that would drop on the 31st of October, and it never appeared. It didn't say, oh, sorry, we can't send you the report right now. It just didn't turn up. Essentially, they ghosted us. This is like when you go out for a date with some gorgeous bird and she just doesn't turn up and you phone her and you just type, where are you? No reply. Hello? Can't get through. Voicemail. It's like that. They ghosted us. And so a lot of people have been back in touch with them. One of them in particular, John Greenwald, of course, is the best guy to do this sort of thing. And I'll be coming on to him in a minute. But just everyone, loads of people writing, saying, where is it? They were writing to the DNI and saying, the office of the DNI, ODNI, saying, look, where's this report? Where's your report? No reply, no reply. And there's been endless speculation about this. A huge amount of speculation. In fact, I covered this in I think was it the last UFO Disclosure video? I think it was. I actually did an entire thing about the UAP report being delayed, and it did indeed take on a bit of a sinister tone, especially when that ridiculous Julian Barnes article came out, and the media then just did a big sort of like about face. This does look like it is distressing, and it's sinister and suspicious. Ross Coulthard has been very black-pilled. I listened to the show he does with Bryce Zabel's Need to Know, and he's been very black-pilled. He was saying he thinks this is the government has decided to cancel this whole this disclosure agenda because of the Ukraine war, which, as I said, you shouldn't do that. If you're just waiting, like I said, if you just we'll do it later when things calm down a bit. When things never calm down. We always have to have some kind of crisis, don't we? If, God willing, the Ukraine war ends peacefully soon, then they'll wheel out something else. It'll be like avian flu, or it'll be, I don't know, pylon disease. God, they'll think of something. I bet the government is sitting around right now thinking, okay, what's the next crisis going to be? So you can't, as I said to Steve Bassett, you cannot just wait. You've got to just launch the ship now. One guy who's, of course, eternally optimistic is Ryan Robbins. He says it's not as bad as it looks. And the thing is, I didn't take that very seriously because he tends to be a little bit ungrounded, UFO Jesus. But then the thing is, he was joined by another voice, and this is one closer to the inner circle. This is Dr. Travis Taylor. Now, he is a senior scientist assigned to UAPTF originally. He actually worked on the original report, the June 2021 report. And he did an interview with John Greenwald Jr. on the Black Vault. And it was actually I breathed a bit of a sigh of relief when I heard that, actually, because he explains both the tardiness of this eagerly anticipated document, and, funny enough, he comes up with a remarkably prosaic explanation. He said, "Don't worry, there's no cover-up going on. The reason it's been delayed is simply the friction of bureaucratic red tape. Because this is due to several things: the lack of budget allocation, other paperwork backlogs, the fact that there was an election in November, a major US election. This is where all the members of Congress were put to the polls, called the midterm elections, which is similar to a UK general election. As a result, there's a huge number of new congressmen and senators that have to be briefed in. Lawyers have to talk to other lawyers. Generals are on leave for things like that, for Christmas and stuff like that. So, I mean, when I watched this, to be honest, I mean, it is good news. It sounds very persuasive, and of course, it's good news if it's true, because it means he's basically saying, "Don't worry, there's not a conspiracy to shut down the 2017 new ufology kind of ATIP revelations." Because, as I said before, what happened in 2017 seems to be the beginning of a disclosure process, and he says, "Don't worry, that process is still going on." And there's no conspiracy to silence it. At least there's no conspiracy on top of the underlying one we're already familiar with. We're still just waiting for politics to catch up with the deadline. Like that's never happened before in government. I do understand that. The fact that they've not replied is partly because they haven't had time. He said, "Don't worry, they haven't had time. They don't want to admit their failures." He said this could take a little bit longer. He actually thinks it could well be sometime after the new year. He actually suggested January the 5th. Well, that's not long, is it? That's only a few days. That's only 5 days away. So that if he's right, and I hope he is, of course I hope he is, it means that the report will eventually turn up. When it does, of course, you will hear about it live and exclusive here on Hapanmo TV, naturally. But then, unfortunately, Greenwald. I mean, see, John Greenwald is a guy he's one of the most. I think he's one of the most impressive people in this entire field. He's honest, and he's open-minded, but he's cautious. And if ever I'm confused about anything or I want to know what's going on, my first stop is the Black Vault, his YouTube channel. If you've not seen his YouTube channel, please go and have a look at it. And he's done several videos. I mean, but the one I've just watched actually is the one he did on Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague. I'll just show it you. It's this one here. I might play a few clips from this. Oops, what's happening now? There we go. I might play a few clips from this particular interview in a little while. This is a 56-minute interview with Ryan Sprague, the Navy, NASA, UFOs with John Greenwald Jr., Somewhere in the Skies. It's a good channel, actually, Somewhere in the Skies. It's a good kind of podcast stroke video reports that this guy does. Excuse me. We see here. I said here, thanks. You can see the comment I made. So yeah, thanks for the white pill, John and Ryan. It's easy to get downhearted in this business. I've slightly preempted myself there by showing you the comment, but this is John's website here. He's been doing this since he was 15 years old. This guy, he was a kid at school when he started doing this. He's now 40 something, and he's still doing it. And he's so much more sensible and so much more level-headed. And he's sensible and level-headed without being without just becoming a skeptic. And there's so much on here. I mean, his speciality is FOIA, using the Freedom of Information Act and its various associated works to plumb the government for any drops of knowledge that can be sucked out. And I've talked about John before, and I do very much recommend his material. So, but the thing is, when John got onto this interview with Ryan, he took a different tone. This was after his interview with Travis Taylor, and he said, unfortunately, because he's been putting out his own FOIA requests, and the result, unfortunately, is total classification. This is at the same time that the UAPTF, so the Arrow whatever his report was delayed. So the report was delayed. At the same time, he kept getting back messages saying there was a total classification on a huge amount of information that hadn't been classified before. He was literally getting denial letters when he was going on the air. And he said one of the things they are exempting from FOIA is all the video evidence. And the thing about these exemption clauses is once they're put in, they're literally there for 2 years. They don't have to review them even for 2 whole years. So, unfortunately, despite the white pill I got from Travis Taylor, this is worrying. Not what Greenwald discovered in itself, but the fact that this has happened at the very same time. At the very same time that the UAPTF report delay came about, and that ridiculous article by Julian Barnes. All these things coincided. Now, what Greenwald said is he basically was told that the UAPTF report, the ODNI, is actually currently rewriting the report. Whether this means there is actually going to be a declassified segment which they're going to publish remains to be seen. But he says basically that he talks about a loss of interest among Congress. I mean, obviously Congress is going to be very swayed by the media because the media is basically where public opinion is, and public opinion is what gives them their jobs. Unless I can't say on YouTube, but there are other ways that congressmen and other officials can be elected, but I'm not going to actually say that on YouTube. But then he says something. You see, the first half of this interview here with Ryan starts off, and I'm thinking, it's very sort of eye-rolling and cringy. Or not cringy, because I don't blame these guys. They're just delivering bad news. But the second half is actually very good. I mean, Greenwald is also he has this natural optimism to himself, as well as his honesty, and the fact that he changes his mind, and he does change his mind. When the UAPTF videos first dropped, so when the ATIP videos just dropped, and Elizondo first came out, he thought, well, maybe these aren't US Navy, maybe it's just students doing it. And things like that. And then when the evidence changed, he changed his mind. He changed his mind while Mick West and his ilk were still doubling down on, it was a reflection in the cockpit canopy and all that shit. So Greenwald has honesty. I think you would trust him. You can trust him to be rational, and not rational in the skeptic sense, which is irrational disbelief. Rational in the way it should be. But he has discussed certain things, such as people giving up. Now, Ross Coulthart has become very, very. He's been sounding quite bitter lately. Firstly, he blames the conduct of online ufologists, and Steve Mumbling made a video about this, taking the mickey out of him. But Coulthart is absolutely quite right. I mean, he reuses the word puerile over and over again, and juvenile, but it is puerile and juvenile. The horrible drama queens on UFO Twitter and places like that. The attacking, the bitching, the trolling, which I'm only too familiar with myself, is not helping. It is an obstacle. And Coulthart was saying basically that this is why more whistleblowers aren't coming out. And there's been other people giving up. Now, this seems to have hit. The people who've been hit hardest by the last couple of months have been the younger and newer people. What I call basically the post-2017 people, the new ufologists, have been hit hardest by this. But people who are older, who've been in this longer, like myself, like John, like Ryan as well. Well, Ryan, I think, is quite young, but he's been doing this for a similar amount of time. He's been interested since he was a little kid. And he's still interested now. I think maybe because we essentially have experienced so much of the pre-2017 UFO milieu that it doesn't bother us so much. If we are dragged back to where we were in 2015, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. We just carry on from where we were there. That's an important point. I want to go on to it. John also talks about why don't we do our own field research? And I don't know if you've seen Tear in the Sky. the film Terror in the Sky. I do recommend the film Terror in the Sky, because this is actually the UAPTX people. So the UAPX people, this is an independent civilian group which has basically got together, funded and organised its own skywatching campaign that is really on the level of what the government was doing with the UAPTF. That is basically, they've gone to places like Catalina Island, they've set up skywatching stations, and they've started looking for the same evidence that the US Navy won't let us have. And you know what? They've been very, very successful. Please watch Terror in the Sky if you haven't watched it. Please watch that film. I've interviewed actually a couple of people. I interviewed Dave Altman and a couple of other people. One other person who was in that particular film. I actually interviewed them on Panwo Radio, so you can check that out on panworadio.com. There's nothing to stop us going out and getting our own, doing our own field research. You know, not being lazy and sitting behind the computer making videos like, well, all right, I know that's what I'm doing now. But you do what people like Gary Jones does. Gary Jones went out with his radiation detector. He went to the site. He gathered plant samples and things like that. You know, Dave Hojian, the Birmingham UFO group, he's a very good. What I like about Dave Hojian is he unlike many UFO groups, this is not just like a talking shop where people get together. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's good to get together and find local people simply for the purposes of finding company and comradeship. But he also goes out and does field research. He interviews witnesses. He visits scenes. He knows what he's doing. He even does regressions on abductees. So, and in fact, John, I mean, I didn't know about this. He's written an article about UAPX because he actually was in contact with them, and I don't know much about this. I'm sorry about this. I haven't looked it up, but you can look it up. I'll look it up at the time I'm making this video. But apparently, they were contacted by several government officials relating to submerged objects. That is something, what is known as transmedium travel, which is one of the 5 observables that Lou Elizondo talks about. And also, videos aren't everything. That the Navy may have exempted all its videos for at least the next 2 years, but videos, in a sense, videos are what gets people's attention, so videos are important. When we think of the post-2017 world, we think of, don't we? We all think of the gun camera footage and things like that. But they haven't said there are going to be the documents that are coming out right now from the ODNI. They've never stated that all those are going to be exempt. So Greenwald, as he says, he has things. There's things he can go after. There's things he can go after. Now there's something. Now he didn't say this, but I would like to say this. Maybe because I'm not American. But the USA is not the only country in the world, I know some Americans think they are, but they're not. And some Americans think, the US, even Americans that actually understand there's a world outside the USA, sometimes think, well, these are just little countries and they all sort of revolve around the USA, which is the center of the universe. No. The United States is a country. It's a great country. It's one of my favorite foreign countries. But it's not the only nation on Earth. What about other nations? I'm working actually on an open letter I'm going to write to President Putin about UFOs and about how if he came forward and explained that explained the truth about UFOs, it would be the perfect way to disarm the current oppression his country is suffering at the hands of NATO. And I'm just going to play now. I'm claiming fair use on this, but John says something which I think is very important, and Ryan appreciates this very much. So I might get a third-party strike for this, but I'm claiming fair use. It's only a few minutes I'm going to play of this.
UAP being seen by pilots. Obviously, Ben Hansen's been researching quite a bit, but I have filed some requests on other cases that have nothing to do with those racetrack ones, but rather they're seeing them all over. And FAA has taken the reports. I've got all the flight numbers and so on and so forth. So I've got quite a few cases filed with that as well. So when they're released, I'll definitely post them. And I've already posted some from the past. One, I think, ultimately was probably Starlink. But regardless, you can start seeing the paper trails, come about and researching UAP when it comes to the FAA. I'm trying to think of how many acronyms I can throw into this answer, Ryan.
I can't keep up with them either.
A ton of them to you. But anyway, there's a lot going on, and I don't want anybody to think, hey, I'm done with this. I should go away, because I go back to my answer before. The true reason why we are all here is still there.
The true reason we are all here is still there. That's a very important point, because this hopefully the people who are feeling despair right now, and especially younger people, especially the younger people, maybe people watching this video, the people who have been inspired by the ATIP New York Times revelations in December 2017, and they've kind of focused on that alone and don't realise there's a history of ufology that goes back an entire human lifetime before that. That's a very important point indeed.
Let the government deter you from seeking answers. Don't let FOIA denials deter you from that. No. Just remember why we're all here, and we'll all have fun in the process, and try and get to whatever truth is going on, if we can.
Absolutely.
Having fun, yeah.
And to kind of end it here, I want to play this quick clip that I know.
All right, yeah. He said we got to have having fun. Now this is important. We mustn't lose our sense of fun. And I mean, I know that a lot of people in the UFO community have completely lost their sense of fun. And a lot of them, unfortunately, tend to be the ones who are very critical of other people, the ones who are particularly the backslappers and people like that, and the hey man, I know it's all, I know reality posers, those kinds of people. I don't have to name them. I've talked about them before. They tend to be the people who lost their sense of fun. But you have to find a way to keep a sense of humour. You have to find a way, I think, to not to take this too seriously, to remain light-hearted about the whole thing. This doesn't mean becoming detached and becoming ungrounded and just dissolving ourselves into escapism. I'm not suggesting that for one moment. We have to be realistic and we have to maintain that realism. But I think we have to find a way to be cheerful. Now, I don't know the quote. I don't have the quote. Again, I don't have this noted down. But the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson, this series of books that I've talked about many times, an excellent series of books. I'll see if I can show you them actually, because there's something very similar. It's something very Mars trilogy, Kim Stanley Robinson. Here we go. These are wonderful, incredibly absorbing, epic books. I'm just now going to show you images here. Best way to do it. Here we go. These books here: Red Mars, Green Mars, and Blue Mars. These three books here. That's the edition I've got there. Do read these. It'd be nice if you can read these. It'd be absolutely brilliant. They've never been adapted into a film or TV series of any kind. They're just books, but they're very, very good. Anyway, the point is, it basically tells the story of a group of people who go to land on Mars, and they explore Mars, and they set up a colony there and things like that in the future, science fiction. The point is that there are two characters in the series. I mean, there's wonderful characterization in this series. They're called Nadia and Art, and they're both very kind of cheerful people. And they say something very, very interesting. The author says something very, very interesting. I can't remember if he's quoting someone, but he says it's actually to be cheerful and to maintain a sense of fun, a sense of happiness in a world of horror and degradation. It's not cowardly, and it's not turning your back on reality. It's actually a very, very brave thing to do. It takes a lot of courage to do it. But I think for the sake of our own sanity, it is essential. I mean, really, maybe we shouldn't be so indignant about this whole thing. I mean, people saying, "Oh my goodness me, they've actually classified these videos. Oh, it's all over. We're doomed." I mean, honestly, maybe they're just doing this because there's some kind of secret war in the sort of 17th letter thing, which I can't say on YouTube, going on behind the scenes, and this includes the UFO disclosure world. In which case, the bad guys, our enemy, the truth embargo that Stephen Bassett talks about, the breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan calls them, they're launching a counter-offensive. And of course, what did you expect? Did you expect them not to? I mean, did you really think these people would just go quietly? Of course they're going to fight back. Maybe the ferocity with which they're currently striking back is a symptom of how insecure and how weak their position really is. In which case, this whole morass as we're suffering at the moment as a result of the things I've talked about in this video, it could flip almost instantly. And it could be within a month or two. I'm going to be making another UFO disclosure video, which is very, very different in tone. One thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not going to make any predictions for this particular year. All I'm going to do is give you aspirations. I know what I want to happen, but I don't. Seen as my predictions for in last New Year disclosure video were so awful, so bad, were so wrong. I'm not even going to attempt this year. I'm just going to wait and see what happens and tell you what I hope for. That's all I'm going to do. And there's one more bit of item I want to go into now. This will make you. Well, there's two more items of news I want to go into. There we go. Now, one of them relates to Richard Branson. Now, this is really quite extraordinary. I hadn't heard about this before, but something took place a rather long time ago. Now, when I first heard about this story, I was very surprised I hadn't heard about it before. This is a very significant event, and it concerns something that took place a long time ago. It actually concerns something that took place on April the 1st, when else? 1989. The person involved is actually Richard Branson. Now, Richard Branson, of course, business magnate. Think what you like about him, but he's an eccentric kind of billionaire, and he's a keen balloonist, and of course he's broken several distance and altitude records in specially designed balloons. But this one is rather strange. This one comes out to this one is a little bit unusual. I didn't know about this, but I'll show you the news story in a minute. But it made me sit up and look. What he did was, at 4 a.m. just outside London, he launched a balloon that was made to look like a UFO. Its envelope was shaped like a typical flying saucer. It was covered with lights, flicking in different colours. So it was not unlike the mothership in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And he called this, Branson called this caper Project Wedgwood. Project Wedgwood, and I think that's because his wife hit him over the head with a teapot when he told her about his plans. So this aircraft then floated majestically over London, M25. Cars were pulling over and staring upwards. The army was put on standby. The police were inundated with calls. It was featured on morning radio and TV programmes. Now, the original plan was to land the balloon in Hyde Park, but the wind changed direction, and so the crew had to put down in Surrey. But they put down in a farmer's field, and the police surrounded the field, and they stared in terror. It was a bit like the day the Earth stood still at what they thought was a crash from another world, or maybe they didn't think that. But the gondola of the balloon was specially designed, and it was enclosed. It was an enclosed chamber, and it was filled with dry ice. And one of the crew on the balloon was a very small man. And when the police approached, the door opened, this dry ice vapour flooded out, and this little man walked out to meet the police officers, and he was dressed like a Hollywood alien. Now, this is obviously a publicity stunt, and it's one typical for Branson. He likes that sort of thing. He is a very eccentric kind of character. But I honestly don't think he himself had any nefarious motives for what he did. It's a bit like that Avebury Carlos, the Avebury UFO I talked about previously on another video, which I got into a really good debate with somebody on. It was on Alien Scientists channel. But as with this particular event, I don't think there was any. It was only just like I think the motivation was simply to have a laugh. But you can bet some people, even if they didn't plan it that way, very opportunistically used this event for some nefarious purpose. Now, I bet my last penny that the Tavistock Institute and these other psychological think tanks, they were, when this happened, when Branson did this, they went and bought every newspaper. They got recordings of all the TV programs and radio shows. You can bet Isabel Menzies Live was like fiddling with these, sitting around there with their beady eyes glaring, horrible, disgusting beady eyes glaring at documents and things like that. Monitoring the story very carefully, watching how did people react to this. How did the police react? How did members of the public? What phone calls and letters did the newspapers receive? The reason is because they want to know what would happen if a real flying saucer flew over London. I'll show you the actual article now. If I can find it, if it'll open. But yeah, this is here we go. It's on a website called Twisted Sifter. Twisted Sifter. Here it is. This is twistedsifter.com. The time Richard Branson flew a UFO over London in an ET costume, and it gives you the basic story here. And this was the balloon. That's not a flying saucer. That's a balloon. That's a balloon. Its canopy is designed to look like a flying saucer. It had lights on it as well. This was flown over London. You can pause and read this if you want, but I've already told you the basic story. This is April the 1st, 1989. This was a long time ago. Amazing. That's very well done, isn't it? It was. And look, E.T. phone home. There. That's when it landed. Unamused, the officers initially threatened arrest but decided against any formal action. There is. There's the balloon. That's the balloon that Branson used. Funnily enough, I know that picture. I think I used it in my reply video to Steve Mumbling, I think, at some point. But there is this. That's actually, would that fool me? I'd like to say no, obviously, but you never know. It might do. It might do. Now, one more thing I want to cover is there's been a nuclear fusion breakthrough. This is and this is not really disclosed. This is partly disclosure related, but there's been Andrew Johnson actually covered this on his channel. It's the scientists at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, in this is California, USA. They announced that they've achieved a major milestone in the development of nuclear fusion power. That's what they said. Now, I remember I did a Panmo TV live stream about nuclear power, if you remember, nuclear fusion power. I think it's because of Sabine Hosenfelder, whatever she said. And what they found is the scientists claim to have produced more energy from an experiment than they put in. But this was not done with a tokamak, interestingly. It was done with an inertial confinement system, as it's called, based on a 500 terawatt laser. It fires 192 laser beams at a tiny little fuel pellet, something that could, with hydrogen in that could fuse, just the size of a pinhead, until it reaches a high enough temperature and pressure to trigger nuclear fusion. And this has to be the timing has to be so precise that it has to take into account the speed of light. Otherwise, because the laser beams actually have to hit the object at the same time, so it doesn't fly off in one direction or another. It actually stays in the same place and gets compressed. And they said they produced enough energy to boil a few kettles. And they said, that's huge, it's exciting. And the reason this piqued my interest, and I watched Andrew's video about this, which is very good, actually. You know what I think of him personally, and as I've said, I will be avoiding him when our paths cross again. But there's no doubt that he's got a very good take on this sort of thing. Because I consider the declassification of free energy to be a finish line moment. This means, if it ever happens, the next video you'll hear from me will be basically saying mission accomplished. The New World Order agenda has been defeated. Because the real suppression of free energy is so fundamental to creating the New World Order. It really, really is. Now, hot nuclear fusion is a form of free energy, so does this announcement qualify? Well, the answer is no. I've talked about nuclear fusion before. Billions of pounds has been spent. We've been waiting ages. It's taken 60 years. And you say it's always like 20 years in the future it'll be working, but they've been working on this for 60 years. What, we can keep a Costa in business for a few hours. So my nose is itching. And actually, Sabine made a video about this, and several people, and Anton Petrov did as well, about this particular experiment, saying that they've lied actually about the real energy economics of this experiment. They haven't taken into account some of the energy input when they should have, because they're claiming they got like 2/3 energy back. But if they've been honest about how much energy actually went into this experiment, they didn't actually get over unity. So I wonder what's going on here now. The question is, why has this been published now? Because I came across another video. This is actually on Brighteon, and it's by someone called Health Ranger Report. Someone sent me this. And it talks about this experiment, saying that the reason hot fusion is suddenly flavour of the month in the mainstream media is because another, more efficient, practical, and developed method of free energy is about to be launched. And the other method has actually reached a point where it can no longer be suppressed. So the globalists are dealing with it in their usual way, dirty tricks. They're heading it off at the pass with their own free energy program, which they have set up on purpose to fail. Funny enough, I didn't get this idea from any real life event. In my Roswell trilogy, and it's the second one in particular, Roswell Revealed: A World After Disclosure, available at all good bookshops now, priced £10. That actually happens in the story. There's an attempt through disinformation to get the free energy genie back in the bottle by focusing everything on a method that is designed to fail. But I think it's more than that. There is some good news. It's a fallback position. I think something spooked them. They must be worried. I'll just show you the video here anyway. It's this one here on Brighteon. If it should still be there. Yes, here it is. This is Health Ranger Report on Brighteon. Situation. Hang on. Pause. Right. Situation update. It's December the 14th, 2022. Hot fusion breakthrough only allowed because of cold fusion revolution now underway. So he's basically this is only the first half hour of this video you need to watch, but I do recommend it. There's the URL. You can pause and read that if you want. It's a fascinating video. No, so he says basically cold fusion, that is low energy nuclear reactions, is being developed so much it's reached the point where it can't be suppressed. It was suppressed before because, as I've said before, this was leaked in 1989 by Stanley Pons and Martin Fleischmann, and the bad guys managed, literally at the last moment, to get the genie back in the bottle by the skin of their teeth. And maybe they won't this time. Now, I was told something, I thought confidentially, by someone. Someone told me something and said, "Ben, don't tell anyone, will you?" But then I switched on, I was watching Alien Scientist, and he had a video from Randall Carlson on the Joe Rogan show. He was usually Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. And he's talking about it too, so it can't be that secret. But anyway, we'll find out soon, because I was told confidentially there is a very well-funded program that has been working for a number of years on a system for free energy, and they're about to publish a paper and apply for a patent. This person says, don't say anything about it, but I could tell you, I can't actually tell you much more than Carlson did, so maybe he's just come across the same information. But what's interesting, you'll never guess where this has been developed. It's being worked on as a laboratory in the Maldives. Now, the Maldives, this little island nation. Yes, whenever you say Maldives, what's the first images that pop into your heads? Jet skis, luxury yachts, golden beaches, hammocks hanging from palm trees. It's not the kind of place you'd expect a pioneering free energy science to be done, but it could be that whoever did it chose the Maldives because they can play on the climate change fear thing, get the government to license it there, because the Maldives is famous for being the lowest lying country on Earth. Apparently its highest hill is just 8 feet above sea level, and climate scientists have told the people of the Maldives, falsely, that their entire nation is going to cease to exist within 30 years because of rising sea levels that are going to inundate it, which is not true, but they've said that. And if you believe in man-made climate change, though, then it's in your interest to support the free energy agenda anyway, because it has the potential to be a fossil fuel replacement, unlike solar, wind, etc. And it releases no greenhouse gases at all, or the gases we're told are greenhouse gases. So this news from Lawrence Livermore might be a hopeful sign we're getting close to the finish line when the deep state, because the deep state are making more of an effort to drag us back. And they were lucky with Pons and Fleischmann, but are they always going to be that lucky? I thought I'd bring that up because that's obviously that's not directly related to UFO disclosure, but of course the free energy issue and UFO disclosure are intimately connected, which is why I wrote my book, or my 3 books. If you've not read them yet, please do. Oh, I had a copy right here, which I used to hold up and show off to people, and it's gone. Oh dear, never mind. It'll turn up somewhere. I think it's over there, actually. Yes, I can't reach it now, but oh, you'll find it. I'll show you the pictures. Here we go. I'll just show you these. Hang on. Roswell Rising, Ben Emlyn. Right, Jones, Ben Emlyn Jones. Alright, look, here's the pictures, alright? There you go. Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. There's the sequel there. There's some pictures of a handsome devil. Devilishly handsome, charming individual. And things like that. So there you go. Do pick up a copy. That's the one I was referring to, Roswell Revealed. That's the second one. That's the one where you hear about them trying to suppress the free energy thing. Yeah. Anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. Happy New Year to you all. And really, I don't have a lot to add, except as soon as I'm not going to make any predictions for this year. I haven't made any New Year's resolutions as such, except that I know what I want to happen, and I hope it does. Whether it does or not, whether the future is good news or bad news, I will relate that news to you in the next UFO disclosure video. And of course there's lots of other videos on other subjects coming up as well. I've got an idea for another watch party already. A lot of you have written to me with recommendations for watch parties and other videos which I've taken on board. There will be another comments reply video as well before long. But in the meantime, I hope you had a good time last night, didn't get too drunk. I didn't have too much champagne. I had enough, but not excessive amount. It made me pleasantly tipsy, but not blotto. So enjoy your New Year's Day, and enjoy the day to come, the year to come. I hope it's a nice year. And remember, it's only 152 days to St. Theo's Day. Thank you for watching Herpanwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.